What it is, y'all? It's your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back with actually something really fun today for my Danmachi players. And this is actually really, really cool. So there was a recent interview with Omori and some of the developers at Wright, or head developers, I guess you could say, at Wright Flyer, discussing Danmachi Memoria Freese. Kind of like a retrospective on the last 6 years of this game. And there's a lot of interesting stuff here. Now, you got to take some with a grain of salt. This is translated from the Japanese. I'm just straight up using Google Translate. So, like, obviously there's some weird stuff in here. Like, a lot of times they just refer to him as Omori Sensei, and then, like, in another sentence you'll see him referred to as, quote, the teacher. But there's a lot of really interesting things here. And one of my big takeaways is apparently Wright Flyer already had the ideas for an RPG. They knew they wanted an action RPG that was mobile, and they came to Omori with the idea, and obviously some of the concepts and things they had brought to his attention. He said, that's actually a fantastic idea, and then got on board. So from the get-go, it seems like there was a great amount of care and concern as to what property would actually be representing this product. Now, obviously they already had a product, and obviously for their pitch to these different light novel and manga directors and editors and creators and whatever. But clearly what Omori saw, and they even mentioned later on down the line, that some people in the production were already familiar with the product. Some people were not, and so there was just this really interesting melding of ideas. And one of the things that they really harp on in this, and I think this is really, really cool, is the voice acting. And that's one of the big things that I really enjoy about the game. For a game that's 6 years old, admittedly. Now, we have a lot of games now that are, more technological, have a lot of the voice acting and stuff like that. But 6 years ago, we simply didn't. I'm thinking back to 6 years ago what mobile games were like, and they were nothing like this. Like, most of them were, pretty simplistic games. By all accounts, this for the time was a pretty out there game as far as like the type of immersion and the type of world building and all that was going on. So in a lot of ways you could consider this, I don't want to say the prototype, because I don't know if there were that many people that necessarily copied this format, but it definitely was groundbreaking at the time. And you can see the technological leaps that came to be games later on. Case in point, look at this game as a stepping stone into what we're getting from K-Lab next month. Or 2 months from now, I guess I should say. So there is a lot to consider here at this point. And it's a great way to show a nice retrospective of this game that we've come to enjoy and love. So I really wanted to share some of the really fun highlights of this, and really the voice acting was one of those interesting things. And interestingly enough, Omori even mentions that at the time that they were coming up with some of these voices, that they deliberated over who would do what voice, and then, if at all possible, try to get the person that did the voice for the anime to do the voice for the game. And in some cases, such as Shakti and other people, Hagni and Hedon were actually mentioned later on because they haven't even shown up in the anime yet, but if they do go beyond Season 4, which is actually hinted at here, that they would actually use them for some of that later on footage. So they heavily deliberated. It wasn't just, throw X actor at X thing. They wanted people that were going to be married to the project and married to that character that they were going to portray for the foreseeable future. So a lot of interesting stuff to consider here. So they asked a lot of questions about even Cross Astoria, and they even mentioned, if I go up here a little bit, you'll see they mentioned Cross Astoria very specifically, and they're like, Cross Astoria was a whole different type of game. With Memoria Freese, they wanted to go a little bit deeper than that, because if you know Cross Astoria, it was mostly just like a card game. It was, I believe it came out a year before Danmemo. I think a year before. So it was even in a prior generation of games. It was, in those Dokkan level of games, which, card games were about what everything really was at the time. Things weren't these super hyper realistic 3D games that are, like arguably semi-open world. They were very simplistic because the technology at the time only allowed them to be so. So they talk about that, and they're like, that was a very different type of game. For this one, they wanted to go basically above and beyond, which is really, really, really cool. So Omori says, I was very happy across Astoria. Well, translated quote. So my expectations of Danmemo were quite high. In spite of that situation, the first gameplay video and development I was shown was extremely well done. The quality of the character movements, the production during the battle is too amazing. So things that we can easily nitpick nowadays as like weird 2D animations, and the one thing that Americans really don't get from our version, the interactive screen, we don't have that. That's only for the Japanese version. We kind of can easily, like, in the vacuum of the modern era, criticize some of these strange movements and how they kind of come up as like paper characters on screen and kind of like flip and move around and do very basic movements. But at the time, you got to remember, that was way more than you would see in much of any other game. So, there's a lot to be considered there. Once again, I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but this is a really, really, really long and very interesting, extremely interesting, in fact, I guess retrospective on the game, and really insight from everyone that was involved at a very high level. There's that, when I was talking to you, they were talking about Shakti, and they even mentioned some potential spoilers, and it's really, really interesting. So really go check this out. Check this out if you are interested at all in this. I think it's fantastic. I read this once already. I'm going to go back and reread this a little bit more. It's just way too much to cover in one video, but I really wanted people to be aware of this, to be able to enjoy this. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I mean, while we didn't get to enjoy all 6 years of the game, we had 5 and change solid years of the US version of this game, and we had so many high points. I never ever ever want to let the darkness of losing this game ever cloud the fact that we really had an amazing product that really expanded upon the canon of Danmachi in such a fantastic way. So guys, we're going to go back into enjoying the 6th anniversary. I really wanted to share this. So much fun. Just an interesting perspective from everyone that really is at like a decision-making level with the game. Like, comment, guys. Definitely comment down below. Like I said, I'll put the link in the description. I'll even pin a comment with the link. I couldn't be happier to have had this across my desk one more time. Thank you, Yoko, for sharing it. I'll be back with more Danmachi for you guys coming up here very, very soon.